Boat Acha.
Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Cunanan. Now, tonight's topic is Incredible India. And joining us still is the Ambassador of India to the Philippines, His Excellency, Ambassador Amit Dasgupta. Welcome back, Mr. Ambassador, to our second segment, all about India. And one more time, another good video about on Incredible India. And we saw a lot of the things we talked about in the first segment, the Taj Mahal,
yeah,
the
that's
tiger.
true. But do you remember that bamboo dance?
Yes.
And that's in parts of northern India, northeastern India. And there's so many similarities with what you have in the Philippines. So I think the discovery that we need to do as part of Indo-Philippines, if you like, relations, brotherhood, we sometimes forget the commonalities, which are so rooted in our culture, you know. Yeah, so sorry to interrupt.
No worries, sir. As India's envoy to the Philippines, what do you like most about this country?
Oh, the people. I think a country is just landmass, you know. It's the people that give a country character, soul. That's what makes a country a country. And the people of the Philippines are really charming. They're gracious. They're decent. I don't like the fact that they insist that I should sing karaoke, but with the exception of that, everything is doable.
Yes, sir. How about our cuisine? How do you like Philippine cuisine?
Oh, I like Philippine cuisine very much. I mean, you're blessed with some of the best seafood in the world. So it's really terrific. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And which sites have you seen in your so
Well, I've
far?
just been here for a little over 6 months, and I've done Cebu, I've done Puerto Princesa, and gone to the underground river. I've done a little bit just outside Manila. I go quite often to the bird sanctuary, which is again outside Manila.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's been nice. And looking forward to going to Davao very shortly. So, and El Nido.
Yes,
And so should be busy.
Yes, sir. Very good, sir. Now, let's talk about the state of India-Philippine relations. What would be the current condition now of this relationship between our two great countries?
Look, I mean, if I were to speak as a bad diplomat, I'd say that the relationship is warm. It's not an unfriendly relationship, but it lacks substance. It lacks depth. It lacks discovery. And I think that's the critical thing. So then you might ask why. And I'd say for many reasons, the two countries have not engaged, perhaps because there's no geographical connectivity. Perhaps our foreign policies were completely different. I don't know, but somewhere we've not engaged. Now this is changing, and it's changing in a dramatic manner. But a lot more change is required, and I'm optimistic in the sense that I say that if you have a relationship where the lack of discovery characterizes it, the good thing is that if you were to discover now, the sky is not the limit.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, look at Indo-ASEAN trade figures. It's $82 billion. Look at Indo-Philippines trade figures, $1.4 billion. It's statistically insignificant. How can a country of 1.3 billion people ignore a country which is going to have 7% GDP growth rate?
Yes, sir.
It's not possible.
Yes, sir.
And there is so much we can do, because India is a huge market, and a market which Philippines companies can take advantage of. Second, I keep saying this everywhere, is that the relationship between India and Philippines should not be the discovery of markets by Indian companies in Philippines. It should be a partnership for development. You know, with the President Aquino's outstanding framework agreement, the possibilities it opens up. And I think it's for Indian companies to take advantage of this, strengthen the hands of President Aquino, and look at that entire region in terms of skill upgradation, looking at agriculture, infrastructure. I think the possibilities are fantastic. I mean, look at the BPO segment, okay, the call centers. Many people ask me, look, I mean, if the Philippines call centers, they're number one. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother Indian companies, you know. Indian companies are quite happy to cede ground, so to speak, because we believe jointly we can take the market in the world. And as a combination, we are a very, very powerful combination.
Absolutely.
And that's my hope. I'll give you two segments.
Yes.
One, if you look at, the President Aquino talks about the universal health policy, health for all. Medicines in the Philippines are between 16 and 20 times more expensive than they are in India.
I thought you were going to say 16 to 20%, but you're saying 16 to 20 times.
more expensive than they are in India. And it's very difficult to do a universal health policy and not make medicines, A, affordable, and B, if you don't extend the reach of these medicines. So they should be available to everybody. The second area, I'll say, is that if you walk into a supermarket and look at, let's say, milk in cartons, they come from different countries, and they're about 60 pesos for a liter. Look at Filipino milk, which is also available there. It's about 72 pesos per liter.
Yes,
Filipino milk is more expensive. If you were to put in the Indian milk, India is the world's largest milk producer. It's less than 30 pesos for a carton.
Wow.
Now, if you enter into a collaboration between the National Dairy Authority of the Philippines and the counterpart organization in India, can you imagine? Milk is food. Milk is food.
Absolutely.
It's that one liquid that provides so much nourishment.
It's the nature's most perfect food.
Yes, yes.
Milk, yes.
You create jobs, you have healthy population, and you know, health is a critical thing. If the population is unhealthy, your GDP will fall because they're not going to be productive. If you have a healthy workforce, they are more productive. And milk is a very critical element, from children to older people.
Absolutely.
This is what would drive it. So I would say that the possibilities are enormous. This is a win-win partnership for development.
Yes, sir. Why is it so cheap in India, sir? Why are pharmaceuticals, among other things, so cheap in India?
Well, we decided that, A, you have a problem, you have to find a solution. So we invested heavily on trying to find the solution. And our biggest, if you like, problem, which is also our biggest dividend, is the size of our people. The market is so huge, you can tend to become insular. Look at your own market and say, well, if I can service this 1 billion plus people, that's great business. And this is what we did, you know. So we had to produce medicines for so many things we needed, you know. You live in the tropics, you're going to have cholera, malaria. These are common problems. You have to deal with them, you know. But then you again have lifestyle diseases, whether it's diabetes or cardiovascular problems. You have to deal with that as well. And then there are tragic diseases that people have without knowing why they get it, but they do get it, which is something like cancer, or Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's. People with eye-related issues. Now, how do you deal with all this? Because you have to. And this is part of what President Aquino is talking about, what my Prime Minister talks about. Growth is a good thing, but growth without development is not good enough. You have to have inclusive growth. And these elements, health, education, housing, transport, these are the components of development, you know.
Yes, sir.
And so as I say, partnership for development, India and the Philippines.
Yes, sir. Now, when you talk about India-ASEAN relations, you talk about trade figures, and I think of that 80 or so billion, I think almost half of that is, I think, India-Thailand trade. Now, and you know, having traveled in the region, I can see really, even as a layperson and a tourist going around, I can see that India seems to be more engaged, really, in other countries in ASEAN. What can be done now to help this process of discovery between India and Philippines out? I mean, how can we spur growth and activity between India and the Philippines?
I think, you know, markets tend to come to a saturation point and then plateau. I would say with many of the ASEAN countries, it's plateauing in the trade in goods. The new segment is going to be trade and services. And you have to be a service-driven economy. And I believe that the Philippines can have huge strengths as a service driver. And this is the area where Indian service sector and the Philippine service sector can actually combine. There will be a worry on the part of Philippine service as they will assume and fear that Indian service sectors are going to buy them off, that there'd be acquisitions. I don't think so. And even where there is a merger or a joint venture, it's going to be for overall increase in profits. And
Yes, sir.
if you look at the Indian IT companies that are working here, the number of Filipinos they employ is substantially more than what many other companies would do. We rarely, if ever, get expatriate workers, and their numbers are statistically insignificant. India has another principle, if you like. We're here for the long haul. We are not fly-by-night companies. Indofil, for example, the largest textile company here, has been here for years. So Indian companies tend to come to a place, they do due diligence, and then they're looking for a relationship, and a long-term one. So I think the services sector will provide that. What you will have is goods coming into it slowly, but the manufacturing base within the Philippines also has to be strengthened. Plus, I think the Philippines will discover that by importing items from India, it perhaps matches standards which could knock off certain other products that are coming in from other parts of the world.
Yes,
And
sir.
then, our products are more long-lasting. They're not just meant for a month or two.
No, absolutely, sir. I'm very happy with Indian goods. In fact, when you talk about medicines, I recently came back from India, and I have a friend who has an illness, and she asked me to buy a certain medicine for her. And here, they were selling it at about 1,000 pesos, something like that. And in India, the same one costs like 80 rupee, which is about 65, 70 pesos. And so when I brought it back to the Philippines, and she actually showed her doctor, and the doctor said, is he still there? Can you buy a box and bring it back? so that's it. Can you imagine? I mean, the kind of the products that India makes, and the pharmaceuticals that I brought back were very good. I mean, she used it. It was all good. It worked perfectly. And which brings me to my next question: is what kind of goods now are being traded between India and the Philippines? What are the main goods?
Before I come to that, can I say that Indian pharmaceutical products are now being sold to over 220 countries? Naturally, if you're going to sell generics, which is what it's going to be, certain multinational pharmaceutical companies won't be happy. And doctors would think twice because, perceptions are very, very strange. It's a very strange commodity. Perceptions matter. And then you say, well, if it's not being produced in XYZ developed country, it couldn't be good. But if India is supplying to 220 countries, including the United States, and it's acceptable there, it clears FDA, then the product is good. And so I think even within the medical profession over here, they need to be able to give the patient the option. Do you want a generic or you want the original thing? And I think if you tell them the difference is 16 times in price, they'd probably go for the generic. But the Indian basket of commodities is traded with the Filipino side. Both sides, that is two-way trade, are on traditional items, machine parts, textiles, garments, minerals. So it's a little bit of agricultural products. So I think the basket is a mix, but it's not focused. Focus is necessary, and that's doable. Some changes need to be done in the investment regime within the Philippines to encourage more investment to come in. All of this will happen. When you have GDP growth rates of the kind that is happening right now, that growth has to translate into long-term sustainability. And for that to do, you need to build around it an apparatus, which is a legal framework. And look at the laws that exist. Where they need tweaking, you tweak. Where they need overhauling, you overhaul. And then you encourage more investment to come in. So I think the basket of commodities will undergo a dramatic shift. Mining, in my view, is going to be a major area of Indian interest.
Yes.
But the mining laws are undergoing a lot of changes. I also think agriculture will be a huge area. Building railways will be a great area. India has the world's largest railway network. And I think we could contribute quite meaningfully.
Well, definitely in terms of railways, that's something this country absolutely needs. In fact, if you look at the history of countries in the world, no country has really successfully industrialized without some sort of efficient railway system.
Yeah.
So it really is, I hope that we can take, again, pointers from India in that sense.
Yeah, it's a cheap mode of transport.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a good thing. And the great thing about a railway is you don't just move people.
It's
you can
goods.
move goods.
Absolutely. And
You know?
cheaper.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Economies of scale. Now, so let's talk about India flexing its muscles. You know, India is a great nation, filled with incredibly talented people, working democracy, fully functioning democracy. It's huge. It's got an arms industry. It's got an automotive industry and many others. And can we, I mean, when we talk about India-ASEAN ties in terms of regional security in this area, do we foresee, I mean, can we foresee that India would be increasing its presence in this area in that sense, in terms of security?
Now, I think India will increase its presence in Look East policy is going to make this part of the world extremely important for India. But at the same time, you know, countries' national interest and national importance is never unidirectional. You know, our neighbors, the countries that who are our neighbors are always going to have an importance. Certain other countries, the United States, for example, will be important. It's not part of our Look East policy. Countries like Germany would be important in terms of trading partner. We have an old traditional friendship with Russia. That's going to be important. But the Look East is an entire, if you pardon the use of the word, cluster of countries that we will embrace. And we have been embracing for some time in an incremental manner. And therefore, we would like to see more vigorous presence over here across multiple fields. And, you know, starting from education at one level to, I mean, culture is what we focused on earlier on. But I think the focus on culture should continue. But there should be a shift to education, to trade, to discussing security issues. Many of the security problems that you face here are also security issues and problems that we face. And the sharing of information on something like this is of critical importance. It's what allows us to be able to take a holistic view and say, look, this has been the experience in the Philippines with this kind of a terrorist group, and this is what they learned. Do we have similarities in our system, and how do we tackle it? You know, and it is this collective pooling in, if you like, of information that allows you to find solutions. Very few people, I think, will stumble onto a solution just by themselves. I think most solutions are a putting together of pieces of the jigsaw puzzle collected from everywhere. So I see a much larger presence of India in this part of the world.
Yes,
across all segments.
yes, sir. Are there mechanisms in place to make sure this kind of dialogue happens between ASEAN and India, or Philippines and India?
Well, I can
Formal
tell you this
mechanisms?
kind of a dialogue mechanisms exist, and the month of February has been a wonderful month for us in terms of bilateral discussions. We've had, in this month itself, consular dialogue. We've had the Foreign Office consultations. We've had a security dialogue. We've had a defense dialogue. And we've had a very popular thing known as the Delhi dialogue, the fifth round of that, which is between India and the ASEAN. And all of this was done in this 1 month. So it's been a very, very intense period. And I'm delighted with this because it's made both sides suddenly recognize the importance of this dialogue and also appreciate the areas of common concern. That is important, you know. We have the same problem, perhaps looks a little different, but more or less the same problem.
Yes, sir. Now, for the rest of 2013, what significant events can we look forward to in India-Philippines relations?
Oh, I think my focus is going to be multiple. I would like to see an increased cultural presence over here. I think India is not just Bollywood, a little bit more than that.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to see an intensification at levels of government and business and industry. So all the government mechanisms must fall into place, whether they're on trade and investment, on health, on agriculture, on renewable energy, on science and technology, informatics. So that's the government mechanism. But I'd like to pull in business and industry so that they are able to appreciate the huge developments and changes that are taking place within the Philippines. And you don't just benefit from those changes, what you do is you add value to that change so that the GDP growth rate sustains itself and grows. That is going to be a major interest for me. And with your help, I hope I can succeed.
At your service, sir. Our pleasure here in the media to further India-Philippines relations. Now, sir, would you like to say something to the viewers before we go?
Visit India. And I promise you a visa very quickly, and I promise you a great time. But the other thing I'd like to tell the viewers is just as a thought to leave behind. How many Filipinos would have read a book by an Indian author? How many Indians would have read a book by a Filipino author? To my mind, that shows the level of ignorance. And we have to correct this. We have to correct this.
Yes, sir. Very well said, sir. And thank you very much, Excellency, for coming to the show. And, of course, more power to you and your staff at the embassy for all the initiatives that you are carrying out and will be carrying out in the days and weeks and months to come. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, sir. Now, guys, I hope you learned a lot about incredible India and India, Philippines, and India-ASEAN relations. Join us again next week here in the show where we talk about what matters to you, because you guys matter the most. See you next week.